Hello everyone, this is Serious Trivia. Welcome back to another episode of our early game playbook guide series as we're continuing our coverage of the 182 start, or the Mandate of Heaven DLC, with Lu Zhi, the respected mentor. Now Lu Zhi is only playable in 182, and these are the factions that we're focusing on first, as we started with Emperor Liu Hong last time. Lu Zhi is one of these factions that actually played a full Let's Play on the channel. So if you're curious about the details of the entire campaign, you can definitely go check that out. But for the purpose of just getting started, this video should suffice. And we're going to take a very min-max approach to this, whereas in our Let's Play, I went with a very historical route describing all the books, keeping as many characters as we can. But in reality, you have a pretty tall task ahead. You are on the forefront against the Yellow Turban rebels, with all three factions pressing down upon you, and one of the factions even start out at war with you. So things will get rough very, very fast. You have very limited income as you hold only Henei, which makes a little bit of money, but it's really not an income commandery. The one advantage of Henei is that it's a harbor commandery, and your harbor is the first harbor after the impassable shallows. So technically, you have access to every single harbor in the rest of the game, all the way up to the gate pass here. So there are a lot of factions that you can trade with in the beginning, and since you're all part of this big empire, you can trade with all of them pretty freely with a pretty favorable diplomatic deals. So that's your earliest way to make money, because you can't really get much from your buildings. So we're not going to build very much. As a faction, we do start out with some very interesting tools to help us defeat the Yellow Turbans. We have a mechanic called the Great Library, which allows us to collect books by finishing preset missions that will unlock these books, and each book can be chosen to be displayed as a set of 4 books, and you'll receive the bonuses from each of these books. And these are faction-wide bonuses that can empower your gameplay. You also have 2 very powerful unique units. For every general that's ranked 3 or higher, you can recruit the Defenders of the Empire. These are unbreakable, advanced spear guard infantry unit, and they're very, very powerful. Not only do they have better stats than the typical spear guard, they're unbreakable, which means they will fight till the very last man and never rout. That's a very, very powerful trait to have. Then we also have a shock cavalry called Destroyer of Treachery that require your general to be rank 6. And this will happen pretty late in the game, so you'll only be able to utilize the 2 that you're given at the beginning, which is a reason to not get rid of those units, because you can't recruit them back. They're very good shock cavalry, a bit expensive, but they specialize in splash attacks. And after the final nerfs to cavalry, where they can punch into the enemy line farther for a cleaner charge, but a less damaging one, you do need some sustained regular attacks, so splash attack on your regular melee can definitely help you clear out the enemies a bit faster, so it makes these units slightly stronger in my opinion. Then we have a unique assignment which can help level up our characters in both the local and adjacent commanderies. It's 100% for local and 50% for adjacent, and something that you can consider using if you have the extra assignment slots from, say, picking the assignment for the prestige point upgrade, and this can help level up your characters quickly to at least level 3, so you can pick up these Defenders of the Empire, which should make up the bulk of your army, because there are many Yellow Turban units that are also unbreakable, so you need to have some unbreakable unit on your side to help you even the odds. We are also a governor faction, so we cannot create an emperor seat. Oftentimes, when you play Mandate of Heaven, you can technically just play till the end of the Mandate War and claim victory. So you don't necessarily need to get to the 3 Kingdom period, because if you keep the Empire together, then you don't really need to continue. But if you do want to continue, you will play out the rest of the campaign pretty much as a typical governor faction. We have one starting unique noteworthy character in Huang Fusong, who is a sentinel with access to Hail of Arrows, but he does not start with ability. He starts at level 1. The earliest you can pick up Hail of Arrows is level 4. If you take a pretty suboptimal skill tree passage, which you probably should still do because there's always a chance of re-rolling a skill tree. It's not likely for a character that you had since turn 1, but even if you go with the more optimized route, you will get it at level 5, which is not too bad. You are strong enough early on without the hail of arrow abuse to win the campaign. And we're going to try to showcase how to defeat one of the 3 Zhang brothers relatively quickly without using too much micro. We'll use a bit of trickery, no looping, and we'll also use a bit of diplomacy to help us beat the first Zhang brother and set ourselves up to fight the other 2 that remains to help you at least win the Mandate War. So with all that said, we can talk about our leader, Lu Zhi. He has some decent trait, nothing too impressive. In terms of faction-wide bonus from the respective mentor background, 10% character experience, plus 2 starting rank for all new recruits, and plus 6 morale. Nothing too crazy here, but it's a decent set of bonus. And we'll be showcasing this once again with no mods on legendary difficulty with 40-minute battle timers. So let's hop into game and take a look at our starting situation.
主公，如今海内纷乱，叛贼四起，百姓正需要您的指引。
吾好守穷经，乃至此位。然庙堂之上竟有弄权之人，宵小之辈，妄图玩弄权术，以图高位。燕患如今气焰熏天，京城不得安宁，天下苦之久矣。西北边陲已有人举义，欲除此乱象。
您需教化百姓，以辅天下，使声名流芳后世。非圣贤之训，何以救黎民，扶正道？
如今海内怨声四起，东方又有乱贼起事。如今社稷微弱累卵，若是必须出兵护国，我当勉为其难。
纵然世道险恶，您亦应坚守本心。道之所在，虽千万人吾往矣。主公，您当为万世开太平。
Alrighty, that's our flyby. And an attentive attendant. Being filial and incorruptible is a requirement for high office. This can, however, be taken too far. And if you write disapproving letters about the emperor, correct or not, you should expect consequences. I mean, this is not a very good description to what's going on, but it's fine. Tells us about our 2 mechanics, the Great Library and the fact that we have Yellow Turban Rebels in front of us. We have to fight an enemy general and we'll pick up one of the books. So these books are selected here. You have 5 slots, sorry, I said 4 earlier, but you get 5 slots for books. You have a grand total of 20 books. I have covered all of these books in great detail in the Let's Play, and it takes way too long to cover each one of them here. But essentially, each book gives you a faction-wide bonus. So you can see 100% character experience from Chu Ci. And the book that was mentioned earlier, which we'll unlock very soon, is Dongguan Hanji. Where is it? Here it is. We'll get 5% armor for melee cavalry if we complete a mission. And the mission can be any mission, but the first one is to engage the army in front of us. And by completing a mission, we also get a second book called Huangdi Neijing, which is this medical manual, which is why we get 5% replenishment. So if you're curious about what the books are historically and what their significance is, how it matches up with the bonuses, definitely go check out that Let's Play series on Lu Zhi. I'm quite proud of that Let's Play because it mainly focuses on these 20 books. So with that said, let's do our first mission, fight the army. But that's not going to be the first thing we do because you want to start with diplomacy, especially in our case because we have so many potential partners to help us fill these 2 trade. We have a lot of fellow subjects, and if you take a look, everyone's very happy to give you a deal. Some extremely positive, some a little bit less so. And what you can do if you have the time and you're actually going to play out a full Lu Zhi campaign, I highly recommend you to click into each one of them separately. because there is no magical combination of which trade value and how much money per turn you can get from them. What you really want to look at here is if you can combine potentially a positive military access. Now, some factions who are farther away is not going to care about sharing military access. It would be negative because the distance is too far. But the closer factions are going to be very interested in giving you and sharing military access. So it will be often very positive. And if that's the case, you can see if there's any early game items like the philosopher that you might want to trade for. And that's really what you should be thinking about with your first trade deals. It doesn't matter who you trade with, the amount's going to stay relatively close, maybe at most a 60 per turn difference between each trade deal at the extremes. But in essence, let's see if you can get some good items to help you out, whether that's satisfaction item, whether that's a good weapon for a character like Huang Fusong who starts out with no weapon. It makes it a little bit harder for him to win a bit of the duels with the Yellow Turban factions to help him level up quicker. So those are things you should be looking for. In the case of this guide, we're just going to turn it to money because you're going to have, a random assortment of items compared to my game. So we typically reduce the variance in these guides just by not going for them. We will go and pick up Tao Qian, who has quite a bit of land. The more land they have, the more income they have. The more income they have, the more money I can ask for on turn 1. And he actually want to give us a positive military access. We'll take that. We'll convert all that to money. Probably around 200-ish. It's not going to be too crazy. So probably 205, 207 maybe. I doubt it'll go 208. Okay, we'll take 207. And that's a good deal.
这很合理。
Then another person you might be interested in, Liu Bei's pretty decent. He tends to stay alive. Liu Bei has a very high value, but Liu Bei is very poor because he starts out at the shoemaker rank and he has very poor background, so he loses family state. Basically, he's not going to have much money to give to you. Wang Rui holds the T in the south and has a pretty decent sized territory. He's someone you can consider, and because he's so far away, this is going to be negative. We're just going to see if we can grab a little bit of money from him. He has the T, so later down the line, if you're hoping to upgrade your inn, you can definitely utilize the T from his territory to help you do that. And maybe we can get 40. Nope, 39 it is. Anything helps, and we get 2 trades set up, and our income becomes a little bit more respectable. If you feel poor, feel free to go ahead and look at everyone who's willing to sign military access with you. There's a bunch of factions with very high value, and you can go around and sign all these for cash. We're not going to do that for the purpose of this series because it takes way too long. You will actually get a very decent income by signing these deals on turn 1, somewhere around 2,000, and we have ways to increase that even farther if you feel too lazy to sign these deals individually. So in our case, we didn't sign them. We signed the 2 trade, which you always should do because trading comes every turn, never goes away unless they decide to break it or they lose the port access. And now we have signed those deals, we can fight our first battle. And we got a couple items. We're not going to use these. We always start out with a stone pick. That's it. No additional weaponry except for the gold bow on Huang Fusong, which is not a really strong bow. He gives the retinue 10% ammo, but not himself. And the expertise is good for a little bit of dueling. And speaking of dueling, the one thing you need to do before you jump into the first fight is switch his weapon. The axe is a terrible weapon. You lose expertise, you have very low damage. If you switch even to the jian, look at the armor piercing, 5 difference, but you gain about 150 base damage for the same attack rate, and you don't lose any expertise. There's a 12-point swing of expertise. Sure, you might lose a little bit of health, 35% additional health to 30%, but the melee evasion goes from 32 to 39, which is actually much more preferred in my opinion. And the damage, it's not really figured into this. The damage is why we want to switch. These might look like more damage, but the melee attack rate is lowered. So I don't really recommend it. I think the Jian is the way to go here. Alright, once we have that set up, the last thing to do is put him into commanding position. The reason why I want to do that is the commanding general gets slightly more experience per battle, and we really want to level him up so that he can pick up Hail of Arrows. This is a big game changer. I'm sure if you've seen any of our guides or played with any general with this ability, you know that you can end up soloing people once you do get this, soloing half of enemy army. His other abilities are pretty standard. And then speaking of abilities, Lu Zhi has Turning the Tide, which increases the power of your unit as long as there's an enemy routing within 100 meters. And then the other are pretty basic, so nothing too crazy going on here. We do have a few other generals in the court. They're not that great. Fu Xi can become good. Fu Xie can become good if he has Perceptive, if you pick up Patience, he's a good capture general. But because we're so short on money and satisfaction, I think the best solution early on is actually to fire everyone here. You could potentially keep Zongyuan because his background bonus is decent, minus 15% upkeep for shock cavalry. This looks pretty good on paper, but early on, even let's say we adopt him and we get the bonus, 15% of 360 here is 54. So he's going to save us 108 per turn, which, you know, it's not terrible, but it's not such a great bonus. And we're not really looking to field a full stack of these since we have no characters at rank 6, which is the requirement for their recruitment. And even then, 360 or 306, even with a discount, it's still a bit too pricey for the economy that we're going to have in the early game. So I don't think he's really worth it. If you want to dream about a late game scenario where you have free cavalry, then maybe keep him. But I would recommend just firing him as well. Mami D, 5% commerce. The title sounds really fancy, but essentially it means his job is to provide the counterpoint, be a devil's advocate with government policies. 5% commerce, no big deal. Gao You is not even historically significant. He's just a pupil of Lu Zhi. Didn't do anything grand historically. 10% character experience, also not something we would, be dying for. And none of them have any sort of unique skills. So what I like to do is borrow a little money from them by banishing everyone here. So we'll be able to pick up 3,200 in income. And for the next 5 turns, only Huang Fusong will be down 20 points of satisfaction, which feels like a lot, but he's still at 13, and those banishment will go away after 5 turns. And anyone new you recruit will not get affected by this. And you have a lot of chances to recruit really good generals in the 182 start, because a lot of generals from the 190 start, as well as the 194 start out factionless in this start. So you can pick them up pretty easily from recruitment pools, especially since you are one of the preeminent Han generals in the game. Alright, with all that done, let's get into the fight. And this fight is quite simple, but we want to do it so that Huang Fusong gets all the experience and no one gets hurt. So we're going to have to fight this manually, and I highly advise you to do the same. It's going to make a big difference in terms of AI behavior after this turn. Alrighty, so we loaded in here. Everyone can hide in the back. Huang Fusong is going to ride up to duel. Turned off so that you can ask for the duel. You get much more experience this way. Now, it's not going to be the fastest duel in the world because you don't have a good weapon, which is why you should actually think about trading for a good weapon for him. A silver warblade, some sort of sword, even if it's the celestial one. I think it's called Imperial. Basically a silver sword is what he needs. One of those axes would work too, but the swords I think are better. And just use this off cooldown. It'll help a little bit. You have 89% melee evasion when you have this, 39 points from your high expertise, and then 50 from this. And you're gonna, wear him down pretty easily. And then the rest of the units are 2 Saber Militias, or equivalent from the Yellow Turbans. So not very hard to kill with a cavalry general. I don't think we need to use it again. I think he's just gonna die. Maybe I'm wrong. It's about 300 a whack, so it's gonna be a little while longer. Two more hits. One more hit.
区区妖贼，安敢犯上作乱！
真是可怜的鼠辈。
Not bad.
你将已被我军斩了。
此等手段也来献丑。
We get a small heal after that. Not full health, of course, but it's fine. Turn on your bow. That way when you run at enemies, you can also shoot them. Although I think this bow doesn't have fire while moving, because you can see the range is not circular either. It's one of the worst bows in the game. But if you stand still, you still shoot. And we want to focus on one at a time, because we want to chase them. The whole goal here is to get as much experience on him as possible. Just want to charge clear out. Rinse and repeat. Let the horse do the damage. Finally, starting to waver. All right, now we just go for the chase. And then we probably want to drag them away from the edge of the map. Or else they're not really going to all get killed by me. Alright, can they chase me over here? Yeah, because we start out in such harsh conditions, I do suggest to have some patience and try to farm these levels, because then you can pick up Zeal pretty fast. Yeah, that's 40% attack rate. So even if you don't have a good weapons, you have a better chance of killing most of the Yellow Turban generals that you'll face. You just want to turn towards them to fire the bow. And then once he's out, there we go. And now it's just farming all these experience onto our general here. Lu Zhi doesn't really need to level up. He is missing fire arrows and night battle, but early on, without it, you're fine. And since he's a faction leader, there's a lot of opportunity for him to level up just passively, so you don't really have to worry about him not picking up any experience here. Like, I would trade Hail of Arrows for Night Battle, especially since Yellow Turban have too many unbreakable units. Alrighty, so all the experience went on him. We'll pick up income, and you can see that he leveled up because we put all the experience on him. We also gained a few books. and some money. They want us to equip the book and they'll give us 10% replenishment for it. Right now, you don't really need that bonus. So if you want to save it, you can. Perhaps till next turn, because you are going to probably recruit some units depending on certain circumstances. But we'll pick up Zeal. This is the long way around to Hail of Arrows, but you get much more useful skills than these two here. So preach some patience here and go the top row and pick up Hail of Arrow by rank 5. And Zeal is going to be very good for dueling, and it's going to speed up how fast you gain levels, because dueling is one of the fastest ways to gain level. Alright. Oh, I didn't confirm. Sorry. There we go. Now we're going to lead the army back here, right next to the city, and we're going to ambush. We start off in a war with Zhang Liang. This is before the Yellow Turban brothers have rebelled. There's 8 turns in the game before they actually rebel. So we get one of the brothers in a war with us in the beginning. They are programmed to take this first, so they can't come at you this turn, but they can come at you next turn. However, if your army's full health, they typically will abandon this location and go after your farm. And this is a very nice trick we can use to sort of just isolate this group so that they can't replenish early on and wipe them out pretty easily with the help of our allies once the Yellow Turban Rebellion does start. Because just like how you are at war with him, since the rebellion hasn't started, he is only at war with you. So we'll use that fact to our advantage once he does make that move. Back in the commandery, I don't recommend building anything. The current build they give us is actually a very solid blueprint for what we actually want in this place later on. It's typically a non-income commandery where you have good food from these 3 buildings and then corruption reduction from this building. And that's pretty much all you really need here. You could level it up if you want to go for some sort of more income base, build it in. If you want to go for more utility, a conscription for more seasonal deployment limit and seasonal deployment discount, or a forge for some item are both valid choices. But right now, these look fine, and I don't really have the money to spare on these buildings. Even though it looks like we have a lot of cash on hand, plus we're making a lot, I want to build up our army. We need to actually fight off not just this group of Yellow Turbans, with some very strong units. Yellow Turbans have some very high morale units. So like Night Battle is not really going to make a difference here. Which is why I don't really think leveling up Lu Zhi early on to pick it up. We're only 1 level away, but I don't think it's a huge importance. Anyhow, with all that said, we're ready to move on to next turn. So let's continue here. Alrighty, so our second turn is actually the spring turn. So you do get to pick your first reform. There's 2 different ways to go here. The most recommended way is pick up your 2 additional trade routes, because there are so many trade partners, and this is the best way for you to make money early on, given our current situation of lack of land, and most of the land are owned by fellow subjects that we can't take. So trade is the most recommended way. There is one scenario where we might consider going the eunuch secretary first, which provide us 1 administrator position. And that scenario is if you get character development on this turn. You don't always get this. This is very random in 182. And like I said, there are a ton of characters who are semi-unique or even completely unique that are available during this period for you to grab. So you're probably never short on characters. In here, these 2 are not someone I'm interested in. And the reason why is they're not super unique and they don't have a huge retinue. There are characters like Lu Zhi, who has the background of model governor, who could show up on turn 1 or turn 2 here with a full retinue of medium tier 2 infantry, 2 archer, 2 cavalry that can become a perfect administrator that can throw in here. And suddenly this place becomes pretty much self-defensible with this stack against them, right? Then we don't even have to ambush. We can just invite them to come attack us and we can beat them fair and square with pretty much a bigger army than they have. if you don't see that situation, right, another character that could do that is Liu Yan, who would have his Dongzhou units, 4 of them, in his starting retinue, and that's someone else you can use for that purpose. But in most situations, sometimes you don't even have any characters on this turn, you should just go for trade, because having a good income means you can build yourself a good army. So we'll go secure that. And it really can be anyone. You know, at this point, everyone has their items equipped, so you're not going to trade for any items. I prefer bigger factions who might be richer. Now, Liu Bao's not that big anymore in this start. Cao Song might get absorbed, but Liu Yu is quite large. So let's go talk to him. Large, but very cheap. Okay. Then maybe Liu Biao will be more generous. Yes, much more generous. So despite him not owning much, he's willing to part with more. And we can get additional income from him. That's a pretty sizable income. 500 plus per turn. At least for the next 10 turns, and then 300-ish. And as our trade influence build up, we can get more. Items, we're not going to worry about that. What we're going to do this turn is we're going to start outfitting this army. What we want to do is have an army that can beat massive amount of infantry and high morale units. So what we're going to rely on are siege weapons. I recognize that not everyone will have the Furious Wild DLC. So not everyone will have the Juggernauts. The Juggernaut is actually the perfect unit to use for this faction because you specialize in having a Spear Guard-like unit, because you can give them turtle formation and they can protect the squad of Juggernaut operators, which makes Juggernauts really good frontline options in an army, and they can wipe out, you know, unbreakable yellow turret masses very, very easily. But in our case, I will just recruit 1 because we only have 2 Spear Guards to protect them right now, and we're kind of short on money. And we also want to showcase other options in case you don't have that DLC. I believe this one was not DLC locked, but it was a patch update. So I think everyone should have multi-bolt crossbows and trebuchets. So I'm going to recruit 1 of these to showcase how to use it. I'm going to recruit 1 of these to showcase how to use it. And then always I prefer 2 of these. And before we recruit any of them, it's time to give him a title. We can use a discount for recruitment with General of the Left. That will also improve his satisfaction. And we're going to do the same exact recruitment. And then we're going to go back to him. He's not going to get any new units. He's too low level. He can't pick up any more Defender of Empire, and that's the unit I kind of want on him. And we'll go back to General of the Right, which is now an upkeep discount. So he can make them cheaper for us to hold on to. And we can now equip our books because we'll get a burst of replenishment. This one is additional armor for melee cavalry, but I just want to trigger the 10%. We also get an event. And then the other book, Huangdi Neijing, will be another 5% replenishment. And technically, we also have a water clock for more replenishment here. But, you know, it's enough. 39%. And we'll stay in ambush. We don't want to move. He's actually going to start approaching this if it goes correct. If he attacks us, it's fine. You will be able to pick up this garrison. They have no night battle. That's a decent sized force. And with what we have here, we'll be fine. It will be a very micro intensive battle. I will give you that. For a lot of beginners, maybe not so friendly, but it's definitely doable. But the purpose of fighting that first fight is to prevent that situation. In most test runs I've done, if the unit is healthy here, as in these units are healthy here, he's just going to go towards that. Let's see if it stays true in this run. If not, we'll just showcase how to fight it. Alrighty, so he did not approach this. Like usually I would see him here, but he is out of vision. So he went somewhere and he left his only piece of land open. So this is our opportunity. We're going to give up the mustering bonus. It's only 10%. We'll still have 29% even if we lose it, thanks to our book, as well as the event that we trigger for the next 4 turns. So it'll be totally fine. Activate and attack. And we would probably want to fight it on the open field, even though it's a super easy fight. But for the purpose of the guide, trying to keep things short, delegate it. But as you can see, with siege weapons, there'll be... Actually, let's showcase it in case we don't get to showcase the siege weapon at all. That way, at least we can see them in action. Alrighty, so we load in here, and I just want to showcase how you want to use your units. The Juggernaut, if you do have the DLC in the unit, you want to put them in the front. And notice here you have a wooden portion and the unit portion. The Juggernaut's a very powerful unit in terms of how much damage it can deal. It doesn't look like much, but this is a kind of a ticking damage where they shoot a jet of flame, and any unit within that jet will take this damage constantly, and it's massive. You melt infantry super fast. Their weakness is their range, right? Their range is right here, 65. Super short range. So most archers, every single archer in the game can outrange you and pick off your operators before the enemy infantry get to you. So the way you want to do it, once you do get turtle formation when your strategist reaches level 4, is you want to grab both of your units. You will have 4 machines when it's full health. Put them in turtle. We don't have turtle right now, but we can use this as an example. It still helps. The bonus of turtle is 100% range block chance. Stack them right on top of the operators, and when the enemy shoot arrows over here, it gets blocked. So you keep them safe, and they can still operate the machine, and the machine can still shoot fire without injuring your troops. And when the enemy cavalry try to charge you, they'll be charging into your braced spear units. So this is a great way to use Juggernauts on the front line. Pretty much unbeatable, right? I would run 2 Juggernauts side by side with 4 of these, and then 2 more spear units guarding the flank. Trebuchets behind with flaming shots. As for the multi-bolt crossbow, if you don't have Juggernauts in the DLC, these things require clear line of sight. The more line of sight and the flatter the land is, the better they work. So what you probably want to do with them is just either leave them on the front or find a highly elevated position, perhaps like that, where they can sit and have a more clear shot going forward, or else they have a lot of trouble shooting. The good news is, since we're fighting in northern China, most of the land is rather flat on the map. So you're going to be fine using crossbows in this part of the campaign. I typically stay away from them because if we fight in the south with a lot of trees, they have no line of sight. They become very difficult to use, and when you're fighting against walls, they're pretty much useless. You need trebuchets to fight against walls. They can't punch a hole in the wall. They're not that good at setting fire to the towers. Sure, if the weather is favorable, they can do the job pretty well, but so can these. If the weather is not favorable, then just the bolts will never destroy the towers. It takes so many bolts. It's pretty much worthless in Siege. For the same price as Trebuchet, I'll almost always go Trebuchet. But anyhow, that's how you would probably use this army. And obviously use your generals so he can level up, especially after he gets hell of arrows. I just want to showcase this situation here. See if we can see them charge up and the damage you can do. We don't have turtle formation, so if they do fire at us, we will take damage. So I will have him go out there and do some damage. You can see the crossbows. They're really good at anti-infantry, but we're level 1, so we're going to miss quite a bit. This is going to be another exhibit where I can make my case that trebuchets are better than crossbows. See? We killed 1 cavalry here. He's tracking onto... Another thing you might want to do is you want to manually aim your... You just hold down Alt, and you will see... Wait, not Alt, Control? Wait, am I doing the wrong thing? Wait, it's... Why am I not seeing it? There we go. Yeah, it was not showing for some reason. Here comes the fire. See the damage? They're getting shot now. That's your job. You're not doing your job. And when they flank, our spear units bounce them right off. You see they just killed themselves. Just finish them off. The thing is, they can flank my other siege weapons. I don't want them to do that. Our cavalry can do that. The reason why they move like that is they got attacked from that side. So they're reforming the wall facing the side they got attacked. But when you're in turtle, there's no issues like that, because turtles consider 360 degrees. You're not flanking us. Right, you can hold down Alt with any siege weapons to target an area, including the Juggernaut. You can make the Juggernaut shoot at a certain place. I recommend always shooting at the farthest range, or else the flame is really short and just wasting potential. Even these can shoot like this. Just right click whenever you decide where you want to shoot. You do need to get used to the aim. You have to like predict some movements there, or else you're just telling them to miss. But that was a great shot. I know most people like the crossbow because you can knock multiple people in a straight line when you do get a hit like that. Like, it can look really, really nice. But my opinion is it has limitations. Like, yeah, you knock down a bunch of infantry, sure. But the rock hits in the middle, that's a lot of infantry too. And the fire has an extra morale damage too. I mean, I'm just a big proponent of the trebuchet. Anyways, easy victory using our siege advantage. Alrighty. We lost a few units to their charge and a couple arrows, but no big deal. We'll occupy it, and all of a sudden Zhang Liang's out of land. I don't know where he went. That's the tricky part. Usually what I do is when he shows up here, about to take our undefended farmland, which would be the smartest thing he can do if our armies are here, is I enter into a trade deal with Liu Bei. I trade him this farm and ask him for money, and then we take this farm and our food situation would still be fine. Because we're trading a level 1 for a level 1, we'll have the same exact food output, just not a completed commandery, which doesn't give you any bonuses in Three Kingdoms. So, you know, there's no loss for us to trade this one for this one, and we cut him off because Zhang Liang can't attack Liu Bei's land because they're not at war yet. And that's how we kind of trick the AI into becoming landless on turn 1 before the other two brothers can join in the war to help him. And then we isolate him and then wipe him out with his army. Now I can't really do that because I don't know where his army went. He could still be here, just in fog, and we can showcase what we want to do here. We would just be handing him this farmland for nothing. That's his capital. He cannot trade us his capital. So we'll be picking up money instead. Liu Bei is extremely poor, as I mentioned, which is why we didn't trade with him early on, because he can't offer much. But we'll take whatever he can offer. Okay, that's a slightly awkward amount. That's fine. Let him keep 0.1. Now he can kind of hold that for us in case he's here. Attack. He can't attack it. He can only meet us here or come meet us here. We don't have any generals yet. Pretty unlucky with the unique generals, but maybe they'll start showing up next turn. Zhou Tai usually shows up. Chen Gong, Liu Yan, Yu Jin. You will have a ton of unique characters. I'm sure of it. Don't worry. Let's continue now. Okay, so he showed back up. He was close by. And now he gets to fight this army, and we can actually showcase how to beat him with these siege weapons. It's not the easiest fight in the world because our backup units are not as strong as the ones that was in the city. But you can see even in this situation, they're giving us a close defeat, meaning they think we're pretty evenly matched with our setup. So let's jump in here and see how we can beat them. Alrighty, so we loaded in here. The only regret I have is he doesn't have a good weapon. Your job is to duel both of them. You can beat both of them. there's no issues. You might want to start with Bo Cai over here before moving to Wang Rao, who has a slightly higher melee attack rate, but not as high as yours, because remember, we got the 40% from Zeal. So with the same weapon, we have better armor, better melee evasion. We can definitely dominate him. He doesn't want to duel us. He doesn't have a good weapon either. But if he does want to duel, take the duel. You'll beat him too. So because we can win all those duels, what we want to do is buy time and just have our siege weapon unload on the enemy as much as we can before the actual fighting gets started. So let me just put them in different stacks. I'm going to just have him. There we go. And then we might slant these guys a little bit because I haven't worried about the flanks. If their cavalry comes close, countercharge them to make sure they can't really attack your, pressure siege weapons. And then everyone else here is just, it's pointless. This group is just for show. And then we're buying time to fight a couple duels here. You can see both of them are going to be willing. Once we show ourselves, there we go. I don't know if the cavalry actually got to charge us here. But I feel like we had more health than that in the beginning. I know we weren't full health, but we had more health than that. Anyhow, it's fine. I would recommend start practicing how to manually fire. Especially from out of range. So if you have vision issues, it's because the cameras lock onto the duel. You see how big the circle is when you're far away? The range accuracy improves when you're close. So that also means if I aim here, some shots will miss and extend beyond the range of my limit. So I can get a couple early shots in that can actually hit the enemy. So just get it started, get a few shots in. The more damage you can do, the better off you will be. And make sure he has that activated. You can see Ready taking the lead there, but you do want to give him as much advantage as you can. And the ideal state is we kill him fast enough to fight the other duel to pull that general off the field as well, so we don't have to deal with the generals. I mean, Zhang Liang, but you have to deal with him anyways. Alright, the crossbows are starting. They have shorter range compared to the trebuchet as well. Another disadvantage. And you see, if the elevation's not exactly flat, you don't penetrate that many people per shot. They land in the arc, you can't do much. And with the trebuchet, you just want to go for the densest area. Alright, he's about to win, and we're going to run him over to fight Wang Rao over here. Come on, we need you to end. I mean, they still have a long way to go to reach our front, but still. And don't worry if you run out of ammo. If you run out of ammo, that means you did well. You got to shoot all your damage before they reached you. That's what you want to happen with siege weapons. Alright, he's won. They're enraged. Don't worry. If we can actually turn off his shooting. Oh, they stop being enraged. They stop being enraged. Yep. And then use the cavalry to kill the general. That's actually not bad. Come back. Come back. Ideally, we pulled him away from the fight before that, but right now we have to hope. Okay, I think he's... this is a bit awkward. He's almost dead, but I can't really get a shot out. I have to try to manually fire this. or else we'll murder infantry. He was really disruptive there.
时已尽，无法继续射击了。
Alright, we loop around and try to kill that. This might become an ugly fight. So what we will do is move our cavalry out and just take on the strength of our unbreakable spearmen to hold this position. Everyone else can die, it's okay. He's routing already. Okay, that's good. We don't need to pick him up in a duel. We'll pick up the archers. You want to save your cavalry. You loop around. I'm still trying to manually fire it that way. Let me see if I can pull him back. There's one machine left, I think. And we want to just flank charge, of course, and then save him to kill the general. Right, cavalry is really good at killing generals. But first, right here, because we have such an unbreakable front line, we have great access to the flank of enemies, and we can just use our cavalry to just wreck them there. And then you don't really want sustained fight against the spear unit, so just pull out. And then just find another one. These are weaker. And if you can get him to the flank, he's still incredibly useful even if it's just one. I'll show you guys how strong these are. Remember, we can manually aim. Absolutely wreck them. See how many people he killed? And they all died. Like with juggernauts against infantry, they have no shot. We don't want to be caught in a fight with him. Want to drag him out. You chase him. Cavalry line up, even potentially into formation. It's okay if we get shot a little bit. You go over here as well. The problem is there's still that spear units. Alright, you guys finish him off. If I can get him to, you know, shoot a jet of flame into him, then I can charge my cavalry into the general and then end him. Actually, I can drag him a little bit over here. Missed. Well, they're routing due to morale loss. That also works. And that's an easy win. And John Allen's faction is done. And our units are pretty healthy. The core units. Alrighty. And at this point, you know, you're one brother down. Every yellow turban general just execute. Especially the good ones. You don't want them to get it back. I'm actually gonna take... I'll take income. We still have the increased replenishment bonus, not only from the event for the next 4 turns, but also the book for another 5%. So we're gonna be relatively healthy anyways. So there's no worries here. He finally reached rank 3. And looking at our income situation, we can definitely consider to recruit a few more Defender of the Empire. And Zhou Tai is here, Chen Gong's here. So at this point, I think we can end our guide. The most difficult part of getting started is over. We could have even kept that because he went north. Or he actually, I don't know where he went. He probably went over here. So trading it was, I think it's still the good plan. The other 2 brothers have not declared war on you yet, but you can definitely trespass if you want, take him out, and then walk back. They won't fight you until turn 8. So you have all the time you want to recover from this initial fight, which is tough. I recognize it's not the easiest fight in the world. But if you have access to things like Juggernaut, if you have access to things like, you know, siege weapons, I don't think these are as good. Trebuchets are still way better. Like, they didn't get to dump all their ammo out in that charge, but they did. And they did more damage. So I'm still highly in favor of just never recruiting multi-bolt crossbows. Replace this with another Juggernaut. They're really good as counter flank even. Hide them in the back. until the enemy collides with your Defender of Earth or Defender Empire, they will hold forever, right? Because they're unbreakable. Flank with these and just shoot a jet of flame into the side, and you win that front so easily. Doesn't matter if they're unbreakable. You just burn them all. It's pretty much hammer and envoy, except for you shooting a jet of flame instead of charging your cavalry. And cavalries are really good at destroying generals who are strong, so you can save these to kill off any generals you have a hard time killing in duels. But if you do find him a silver weapon, I think Huang Fusong can beat pretty much anyone in a duel, at least on the Yellow Turban side, especially if you go Zeal first, which is pretty key. 40% attack rate is definitely very helpful. And once you get Hail of Arrows, you have another tool to wipe out massive amount of enemies in one go. And when the rebellion does start on turn 8, it's not that hard. You only have to deal with very few enemies. You don't ever have to think about whether you need to battle Fervor or not. Fervor is very annoying. It causes rebellions really, really fast in the game. And if you don't take care of it, it could just bog you down. But Fervor disappears if the Mandate War ends. So if you're quick enough, you can easily wipe out all the brothers within, maybe 2 years time, 10 turns, and you don't have to deal with Fervor ever in the game. So it's not really a mechanic that you should be really bogged down about. It only happens when you slow and when you're not close to the rebellion, right? If you're playing as Cao Cao or Sun Jian, then Fervor might be annoying for a while because you don't have a say in how fast the rebellion ends. But if you're playing as Lu Zhi, you're going to be ending the rebellion pretty fast. And Fervor is really not going to be an issue for you. And you usually will get help from generals like Zhou Tai. So now it's about adding him into the army, building a friendship between him and them, and he actually gets along with Huang Fusong, so they will build up friendship pretty fast. And you can get rid of these two, they're useless. And once he gets Undying Vow activated, Hail of Arrow, Undying Vow, Juggernauts, Unbreakable Infantry, Splash Damage Cavalry, you are a very powerful faction, and you should have a pretty easy time wiping out, the Yellow Turbans. And if you want to continue playing, you definitely can continue to wipe out other factions, reach 3 kingdoms, and become Emperor yourself. So hopefully this guide will help you playing Lu Zhi, especially with this early start with this army pressed up against you. And hopefully you will try them out, because next time, starting next week, we'll be covering all 3 of the brothers. So we'll be showcasing the other side of this fight, where Lu Zhi becomes kind of public enemy number 1 for people like Zhang Liang in the start. So until then, bye!